This is CyberSound, your simplified and fundamentals-focused source for all things cybersecurity.
Welcome to CyberSound. I'm your host, Jason Pufahl, joined today by Dan Kaupp and Lou Ardolino from Vancord. And we've got Anthony Minnie, the President and Chief Information Security Officer of Pearl Technologies, and the author of a recently published book called How to Hack Your Health: An Algorithm to Better Energy. Anthony, thanks for joining today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Anthony, you are President, CEO of Pearl Technologies, also an author of a book. And that was really what kind of got our conversation here started, right? So in April, you published How to Hack Your Health: An Algorithm to Better Energy. Kind of tried to convene a group of people here who I think prioritize, health and wellness in, their daily lives while managing families and work and, sort of all the things that life throws at you. So I really wanted to spend some time today talking about the idea of, I'll call it healthy living, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be purely exercise based, although I think it's a focus for a bunch of us here. And how do you build that into your day, and what the benefits are when when a lot of us are probably working 10, 12, 14-hour days, and then doing a ton of other stuff outside of work. So I think that's our topic today. Do you want to take a minute and just maybe spend a little bit of time on your background and kind of what got you interested in this space and what led to the writing of the book?
So yeah, just a little background on me, and thanks for having me. I was a computer nerd that ended up joining the National Guard to pay for my college. I wish it was a more patriotic reason, but that was why I joined, and quickly went to boot camp in 2001. And we go to a technical school to learn how to service computers, and it was at Keesler Air Force Base. I got to that school on September 11th. And so that pretty much changed what was my hobby at the time to become pretty much just my purpose. And I've been plugged into the internet, sitting at a desk pretty much ever since. And that kind of what started the journey for me. And as we talked earlier, it was pretty easy to pass my PT test when I was in my early 20s. And as I started aging a little bit, I noticed it got a little more difficult, and I started to kind of break down why. And for the last 24 years, I started to build an algorithm, because everything's an algorithm to us tech nerds. So I started to kind of map out what was impacting it. And that was kind of the premise of the book, is just kind of my journey over the 24 years to learn how to pass a PT test, but also I learned a lot of benefits of just energy in general. And I'm not trying to tell anyone how to do it, other than just show them the variables that contribute to their current situation, because everybody's different. And there's a lot of people out there making claims, just do this 20-minute thing, just do this diet. And it really comes down to you testing it out and finding what works best for your situation. But we all sit in front of a computer a lot, and that's a pretty big variable of being sedentary. So that's kind of my journey. I'm still in the Guard. I'm a commander of cyber operations in the Air National Guard for the last 24 years. And I was going to retire, but I'm kind of Brett Favre-ing it one more season at a time. So
there you go. I had a friend of mine who used to always say there's no substitutes for youth. And I think, that's always held true for me. So I think you're right. As you get older, you have to work a little harder. You'll probably change some things, but what's easy at 20 isn't as easy at 50 anymore.
no.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we all talked about maybe sharing our background a little bit. My watershed moment for exercise, I've always exercised. I'm not a big guy. I generally, run and bike and whatnot. But back in 97, I broke my wrist and spent close to 8 months in a cast. And it slowed me down a whole bunch. And a friend of mine and I went to Key West. We got pictures back after, sitting at the beach. And we both looked and said, oof, we're not looking the way we want to. And honestly, since then, like we went out, we had an apartment, we bought a cheap kind of home bench press gym, started just generally lifting and kind of never looked back. I just realized and for me, it was 15 extra pounds. But that 15 pounds, I had people saying like, "Hey, you look older. Hey, you look different." Things that I just wasn't used to hearing. Whatever I was, 25 or 6 years old. So that was it. I really haven't missed more than a couple of days probably since then, because I realized, and generally it taught me too, as I started doing it, it just felt better. Like, I'm pretty kind of type A. I'm probably a little high strung. I kind of need to exercise. And when I exercise, I'm better with my family. I'm better with my friends, certainly better at work. So it's as much a mental benefit as it is a physical benefit for me.
Yeah, just thinking through, similar to Anthony, I have the military background, but just thinking through, like, as I get older, 47 now, right? And I'd love to hear Lou's opinions on staying a meathead, like he has in spite of his age, right? But age is that great equalizer, right? So I was just listening to an old podcast, Goggins on Joe Rogan, right? I don't know if you guys have heard that, but It's a pretty interesting listen. And it turns out I'm the same age as David Goggins within some months. He just ran a 200-mile race, 66 hours, right? So that's like the other end of the spectrum from, like, kind of where I'm at. I just try to, similar to what Jason said, I'm better, I'm better with my family. I'm better with my job. I'm better with all the things when I stay busy, when I stay doing all the right things. And I'm a techie too, right? So I'm tracking like all these different things and all these metrics. And I have a spreadsheet that I've been running for several years that tracks, like, consumption, like all these. It's ridiculous, really, because I don't show it to anybody and I just use it to keep myself honest. And, it's kind of asinine because I do all the same things every day and I track it in a spreadsheet and I know I'm going to do those things, and and it just is. But I got to tell you, when I get to the PT test for the military and I max it out, brush all these, 20-something-year-old kids, it's pretty great. So I guess that's why I keep doing it. I don't know. Motivation's a weird thing because I just, and it's probably not motivation anymore. It's just discipline. You just keep showing up and doing it because that's just what you do.
It becomes habit, right? I mean, and habit's a strong thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel bad. Like, I go 2 days without working out. I'm just like, man, this is not working. That's not good. Can't do it.
So I've never been the fastest necessarily, reasonably competent running and biking. But I always sort of thought, like, all right, when I'm 80, I'm going to win things because I'm going to be that last man standing. And now that's not true anymore. People are exercising way, way older, I feel like, when they used to. I don't know if anybody saw the 80-year-old who just finished the Badwater 135, which is a 135-mile run through Death Valley. He's 80 years old. And he realized, wow, there are some people doing some just unbelievable feats at ages you never saw. You didn't see that 20 plus years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Jason. Dan, I don't consider myself a meathead, just FYI. I go to the gym. I exercise to keep, to keep myself healthy and moving. I'm not looking to squat or bench any records anymore. But
Anymore.
But
back in the of all the four of us played at Ithaca, right? Football.
Yeah.
Played at him more than any of us. Yes. Played at a high level.
Yeah, I played. So I've played sports my entire life, and I played football at Ithaca College. My senior year, my freshman year and senior year, we won the NCAA Division III National Football Championship. Small school, big fish, little pond, right? But little fish, big pond. Big fish, little. So And also my degree at Ithaca was exercise physiology. So immediately after I graduated, I worked in the fitness industry, and I was 280 pounds when I played football in college, and I quickly realized I had to shed that weight to stay healthy, and I did do that. And I worked in the fitness industry. I still run. I have a side hobby where I run a fitness, my own little fitness company where we run weekend boot camps for uh local people, and we run it. I have a tire in the back of my truck, a sled in the back of my truck. I can stand up a fitness class in 5 minutes and run it in the parking lot at any point at any time. So fitness is all a part of my life. I met my wife while working in the fitness industry, so we've been very focused on staying healthy, and we drove that down to our kids as well. Our children are all play sports. They all play sports in college. So it's certainly been part of our lives.
So, Anthony, I'm going to start I'm not sure if it's softball or maybe a difficult question, but is there any? Everybody, every influencer wants to unlock or provide the secrets or do something like that. And I'm not saying you're an influencer, but you did write a book. Is there any outcome that you feel you really came to that if you had to give somebody some quick advice, you would do?
Yeah, and that's kind of the premise of the book, is that, it's a massive industry when you get into the healthcare and fitness, that there's a lot of claims, people trying to make money, unfortunately, right? So do this 30-minute workout and you're going to have these abs, and do this diet, don't eat carbs. I mean, it's one claim after another. And it's interesting for us because we've been around the internet and seen the evolution of the internet. But if you were to Google right now, let's say lemons cause cancer, you might find something from a reputable source, let's say Harvard Health, that says too much acidity and whatever it might cause cancer. You could then Google lemons cure cancer and might find something from Mayo Clinic that says just the right amount of lemon in your water every day will help you keep you balanced. So there's a lot of very contradicting data sources out there that are reputable, and people who are reputable, and I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just a natural skeptic. Just that's how my brain works. I don't know if it's from being in IT so long that I don't believe anything works, but I would end up kind of looking into things and finding out, okay, how does that work for me? And so to answer your question without answering your question, is that my real epiphany was the silver bullet is just finding out what works for you. What is your occupation? Are you sitting a lot? Because if I was a roofer, I might be able to eat a couple more calories a day. But sitting for 14 hours, that's not a luxury I'm going to have. I also maybe get to keep my back a little longer. But in my occupation, the one thing that really stuck out to me in this journey was the impact of stress. And I liked, Daniel, your Excel sheet. Thanks for sharing that, because that is the tight nerdery of the things that techs do, is what are the variables? It's like you're an operating system. What inputs are going in and what's the output? So for me, I like to dump just a lot of stress. I don't know if it's a dopamine hit. I get excited responding to a ransomware attack. That might be sick, but I like that. And I started studying stress, and what's amazing about the time we're living in is the transparency and accountability you have, just like that Excel sheet where you can put all this tech on you, whether it's your watch, you're breathing into something, telling you if you're burning carbs or fats. Like, it's an amazing time to be alive. And I noticed that, not to get too deep into the weeds, but I was having some like gut issues because of stress and my eating. And I really wouldn't have known that without the tech to look into kind of what was happening. And I'm bad with words, but my mitochondria like wasn't locked in. And so I started focusing on stress, and I noticed there's two types. There's distress and eustress. And it's really how you respond and embrace the stress that hits you, whether it sends a dopamine adrenaline hit or cortisol and distress. And you could look like the healthiest person. You could be fit as Jason, run 15 miles bike, but have so much distress in your body that your internals look like the lungs of a smoker. So, fitness can be kind of misleading until you find out what's kind of going on the inside. And for me, that was the biggest aha moment, was just figuring out, all right, how do I manage this stress? And I started doing a whole bunch of different things. I take a nap at lunch. Everybody makes fun of me. I come out from my nap and they're like, "You want your peanut butter and jelly sandwich now?" I should have got my juice box. But I started doing these things to manage my stress, had the biggest impact for me. But everybody's different. That's the whole premise of the book, is kind of know what you're working with and then play around with it, find out what works for you. But don't take anyone's word for it too much. Everyone has their own journey, but there's just a lot of claims out in the industry that might work for you, might not.
So I'm curious, do we all track what we do on a daily basis? I mean, I know that I do. If it's not in Strava, I feel like the exercise didn't actually happen. And clearly does. Anthony, I'm sure you do. Luke, I honestly don't know if you do that.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I track. Yep. So some of the apps that I use, I mean, I have an Apple Watch, so I'm tracking my exercises via Apple Fitness. I use an app called Lose It to track my calories and my food. One of the things we do here at Vancord is we have a company step challenge going on, and we use an app called Step Up, which allows you to aggregate any fitness device, and whether you're tracking on your phone, whether you're tracking on a Fitbit, whether you're tracking on an Apple Watch. It'll track your steps, and we have step challenges that happen weekly and monthly. So that's kind of fun, keeps everyone engaged. But yeah, I do track. I'm very methodical about tracking. I'm always tracking my workouts and my diet.
So here's a question then. How much do you think tracking, do you look at the data and try to improve because of the data, or does the act of tracking and not wanting to miss days, for example, is that more of a motivation than even looking back as a kid? I mean, I know for me, I love to see streaks, and it's really rare that I go back and look at previous exercises. Strava will tell me, if I'm on a bike route, what my speed for that route was maybe a year ago. So I'm always curious to see if I'm roughly on pace. That's about as sophisticated as I get, other than the act of tracking and looking at my stats, December 31st and seeing how my year was.
The act of tracking is it for me, like knowing that if I forget to start my watch when I begin an exercise, I'm all thrown off. But when I go for a run, I'm tracking my pace and am I improving on the last run. But from a weights and measure standpoint, I'm not really looking at did I complete that exercise faster? Did I do more reps? I'm just tracking my exercises.
And I gotta tell you, I don't know, for me at least, as you get older, it's better to not compare, right? Because I was looking at my old times in Map My Run, right? I'm sure you guys have heard of that, but looking at times from like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, like it is so unmotivating. It's like, man, why am I even doing this? Right? I'm losing like minutes off my times. Yeah. So
You're trained, then you can move when you're 8. I mean, I think that's the reason largely we're all doing this, right? Your quality of life later is hugely affected by your quality of life today.
And Jason, I'd have never thought of it until you asked, but I've never looked back either. So I know a lot of us on different levels of spectrum. I call it OCO. So instead of obsessive compulsive disorder, I call it obsessive compulsive order. Just coined that year to here, but I use these types of accountabilities to keep me in line. But you're right, I've never looked back. I've never
Don't.
even analyzed it, but I got to do it. But you got to get in. That can bring up some challenges though, because some people get too fixated. Maybe their Apple Watch tell them their heart rate's up, and then that can be cyclical, and all of a sudden it's getting in their head, and the heart rate goes up more, and so I think you got to kind of be careful. But yeah, it's an amazing time to kind of have access to these feedback loops, right? Which we love in technology. You got to have that KPI and just an internal feedback.
So I want to change a tiny bit here. And this is a tough podcast for me. Usually we try to keep it around 15 minutes, but I love this topic, so we're already over time, and I'm going to ask another question. But when we were chatting at the beginning, I think, Nathan, you mentioned the idea of sort of gym intimidation. And, on right now on this call, there's 4 people who exercise regularly. We're probably pretty comfortable exercising in groups and just doing things. But, what I would hope that somebody who hears this sort of says, hey, I'd like to stop because it's better for my mental well-being. It's better for my physical well-being, whatever. But it's really challenging to go from a place of maybe not being fit to being fit, but then exercising with people. And I think for me, the social aspect of exercise is arguably as important as the physical aspect. And I love exercising with people, but partly I'm sure it's because I'm comfortable enough doing it. You mentioned gym intimidation, the idea of going to the gym the first time and not knowing what to do, right? Not knowing what weights to pick up, not knowing how quick to set your treadmill, maybe, whatever that might be, or even going for a light jog with somebody where you think, maybe you can't run that 7-8 minute mile that you think the group's going to take, and it discourages you. That's a place where I feel like we really need to change the thinking around it and be generally more inclusive and try to encourage people to get out. And that might mean making adjustments to your own exercise, but it's so important, I think, the social piece of it. I'm curious your thoughts there.
Yeah, and there's an industry, obviously, because you have Planet Fitness, right? I mean, it thrives just based on that premise. And I've had some friends tell me the same thing when I've asked them to come to the gym. They're kind of intimidated to go, and it doesn't help at our base. We have special operators that make us all look, ridiculous. But for me, I was interested in just the energy benefits and not so much having beach bod or gaining a ton of muscle. My drive to go to the gym was just to enhance my metabolism and really work on that mental stress. And I noticed through the years as I've gone to the gym and see people in there, I could tell you everybody is so excited to see others in there. Everybody starts somewhere. And when you see someone that maybe isn't in great shape in there, in all of our hearts, we're like, hell yeah. Like,
yeah, great, go for it.
Good for you. Yeah, like there's no one judging. There's 10% of the world's assholes. That's in the library. That's everywhere. But in the gym, I think because we've put so much work into it that when we see others show up, we're so happy that if we could go high five you and that wouldn't be weird, I think we all would. We're excited that you're in there and we want to support you. And it's an amazing time. Again, I keep saying that, but there's so many apps out there that show you how to have proper form. One of my favorites is like Muscle in Motion, and I've seen it in my Instagram, and it just shows you how to have proper form, and that helped me not look like a knucklehead. But and you could ask people, like if you were to ask someone to spot you, every time, 100%, I've not had a bad experience to ask someone to help me or spot me. They're always willing and excited to help you. So, yeah, maybe we have like National Nerd in the Gym Day just to break down this barrier, but we need to do something.
Yeah. I mean, anything to encourage people to get out because it's hard to get started, and it's hard. I mean, I feel like my takeaway from this in a way is, routine is just such your friend. And if you can, it doesn't even matter. Carve out, 15 minutes a day. I know going back to when I was 20, I just had this attitude like, if it wasn't an hour, then there's no point in doing it. And there's no doubt my philosophy around that has changed. If my day's packed, but I get, 20-minute run in it's better than 0 minutes, and you did something. And boy, it's tough to make that mind shift. And I think a lot of people struggle with that because they feel like, to your point, well, I need to do this 30-minute exercise routine, and I just don't have that 30 minutes, so I'll skip it today. But it's the worst outcome.
Mm-hmm. That's sort of what I was thinking of, like sort of nice segue question maybe for the group, because we all spend a lot of time, all 4 of us spend a lot of time, tracking, doing all the right things over and over, right? But I find that sometimes if I let one thing go, then I'll let all the things go. And so I'm sure everyone on here has felt that before or struggled with that. And maybe you even address it in your book, Anthony, but like, what are some of the ways that you guys pull yourself up out of that? Like me, I know then like 2 days later, I'll just punish myself, right? Like, because, that's like sort of how my life is. Don't be so gentle on yourself. That's the saying I just love to say, but what do you guys think about that? How do you pull yourself up out of that and start doing the right things again?
I've got one quick answer, and I'll say my wife will tell me that I need to go. Honestly, that she knows if I am under exercise, and she knows my whole disposition will change if I have the time to do it. So if I find a couple of days have gone by, she tells me. I don't even need to tell myself, and then I'm generally good again. So
I think it sounds like you have the OCO too there, Daniel. But I
oh yeah,
for me,
spectrum. My wife says it all the time. Yeah.
Sometimes less is more, and that took me a little while too, because I am stubborn to realize, like, all right, today's an active rest day, so instead of running 5 miles, I'm just gonna walk 3, and I'm gonna listen to an audible book, but I'm gonna move. And I think that's the most important thing. You're never gonna have time, especially when you got jobs and families and all that, but you got to make time. So for me, the only way I've been able to do that is in the morning. I get up while everyone's sleeping, and I'm not sacrificing then after work the hour window I might have, with the family. So for me, the mornings worked out. I'm not a morning person, never have been, never, not one day have I ever woke up and been excited, but it did become muscle memory. So sometimes I've driven to the car half asleep, but I got there and, just kind of found my way. And, to your point, Jason, even if it's only 15, 20 minutes, it's that mental win.
yeah,
That you walk out and it does feel night and day difference. But I think to your question, Daniel, it's just maybe as opposed to it being a bigger thing, like a 45-minute workout, maybe just make them smaller so you have that placebo effect of the wins. They're not as grand. It's not as grand because then, he's only a 20-minute workout, but there's the mental win of just doing small things every day and they stack up. And not beating yourself up either too, because I think that happens a lot where we do miss and then it can kind of fall from there. You have one cheat meal and you're like, well, why not a second cheat meal? And then the wheels fall off, right?
Full of ice cream. Yeah. Go nuts. Yeah.
Well, and that brings up the rewards, right? Like, I think you do need to have a cheat meal for your mental health. If you're just so strict, you're not enjoying life, then kind of what's the point? Interestingly enough, I did a poll on LinkedIn not too long ago, and I asked people, I said, if you were to have $400,000 in your 401k in perfect health, or 1.5 million in decent health, or 7 million in not good health, like what would you pick? And I was blown away by the results. I mean, almost everybody went with the lower 401k in good health. And that's where I think we need to shift our focus, because we spend a lot of time on maxing out our Roth IRA and doing all these things, but for what? You hit 65, 70, what do you have,
Yeah. You need, yeah.
some investors. Yeah.
So I feel like, Lou, I'm curious your thoughts on the motivation, because I feel like, I don't know Anthony nearly as well, obviously, as the two of you, but you're a machine with
Epitome of motivation. Yeah.
I mean, you don't ever seem to miss that. I need you, Ponder. I think there's no way he's getting up tomorrow, and they're like, dang, he was up at 4:00 again.
So, I use the so I have to train it's okay. Like Anthony said, less is more sometimes, right? It's okay to take a day off. It's okay to let your joints rest, let your shoulder heal, let your knee heal, your back heal. So you're not walking down the stairs in the morning one step at a time, right?
Every day.
But when those days happen, I use the data and the apps to make sure to keep me honest, right? So I know that, okay, I'm not going to be burning these many calories today. So let's make sure that I'm not in the red in lose it, because that is a bad day for me. So I use the data to keep me honest. I'll also justify doing other active rest exercises, right? Take your dog for a walk, mow the lawn. I use those as, in my mind mentally, right? Like, okay, I'm still being active and it's still okay. Jason, I use the data to make sure that I'm not, eating 6 slices of pizza, a hot fudge sundae, because, I'm a fat kid at heart. And I'll go down that rabbit hole, like Dan said. Once you don't do it, you're like, okay, we'll just start over tomorrow.
Slippery slope.
Slippery slope. So,
And I'll go here, which is there's some vanity at play. You said, Anthony, you're not looking for the beach bod necessarily, but I'll go through a period where I'll eat too much dessert, or maybe I'll have a couple of beers in the week where I realize, what, I'm feeling it. And at 50, really 55 now, my body doesn't tolerate those, honestly, couple hundred extra calories a day the way they did 30 years ago. So you have to be so much more mindful of that, because you can go downhill quick if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, that Seinfeld episode with the yogurt. You guys remember that one? The fat-free yogurt. Oh man, so good. Kramer just like, you're fat.
Yeah. And it can be tough in a workplace too, where people are bringing in donuts, right? Because that can be a social thing in the office, and candy, and you are tired sitting at your desk. You're not moving. The blood's not flowing, so your brain get tired. Next thing you know, you throw an airhead in and popping sugar. So, but yeah, it is something a lot of people don't want to speak to. Is a stigma. Is part of your presentation of who you are as a human, that you take yourself serious, and you're putting in the work in that place. It's a visual demonstration, not to fat shame by any means. It's just if you look sloppy, you might act sloppy. That's something the military might say from time to time. I don't necessarily agree with it, because some of the smartest people I know in the world might be 100 pounds overweight. But it's just one of those things that, from a presentation standpoint, to take pride in yourself a little bit. But that's completely secondary to the longevity of your life. I mean, that's the only thing that really matters here, is you want to have good health and live and enjoy retirement you're saving up for. But you're fighting an uphill battle. For sure.
For sure. All right, we are significantly over time. Honestly, I think I appreciate everybody joining. I appreciate everybody sharing their stories. I do hope, honestly, if there's anybody who's listening who feels like, hey, I need some motivation, this is a group, I think, of folks who would be happy to just chat through, what's worked for us, kind of how did we start, what's a reasonable way to start. I want to be careful. I don't want to pretend that, at least I'm not a fitness expert, but I do know how it makes me feel. And I feel like, it can be motivational there. I've thought about saying, hey, we're in Connecticut. Hey, if anybody wants to get together for like a monthly, security talk and walk group, that would be kind of fun. Just get out and do something that is business related, but in a social setting that involves some movement. Maybe that's something we want to spearhead coming out of this. So, any parting thoughts, Anthony, before we leave?
No, I just appreciate the time. It was actually kind of refreshing, because as a nerdy introvert, I don't talk a lot about this really, other than the book. That was kind of a surprise to everyone, even my wife. Just like, hey, I wrote a book on this. But we're all kind of in our own individual battle, right? Living in a parallel universe of trying to stay healthy and juggle a million responsibilities. So I had a great time with this. It was exciting. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm glad you could join. And it was a kind of fortuitous meetup there on LinkedIn. So I'm glad that this worked out.
Yeah.
Well, as always, I'll say I hope people got some value out of this. At least found it interesting. If nothing else, 4 people a little bit better than you did before you tuned into the podcast. But I appreciate everybody listening. Any questions, feel free to reach out. And we can always have Anthony back if there's interest. So again, thanks everybody.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to get in touch at Vancord on LinkedIn. And remember, stay vigilant, stay resilient. This has been CyberSound.